Hi, this is Erica Merrill, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She is an amazing attorney. She has a firm out of Worcester that handles both family law and real estate law. And we're very fortunate to have her with us every single week. Today, we are going to be talking about collections, how to collect the money on these judgments when you actually do get awarded money. And welcome to the show today, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you're here. So let's talk about this. What leads up to collections? I mean, you're awarded something. Do they hand you the money that day? Like, I don't, you don't even think about it. You just think that people automatically will do what a judge says. It's not so?
It's not so. It's never so. Sometimes it's like pulling teeth, and sometimes you have to nudge them along, and sometimes they really do what they're supposed to do. But I can't really rely on that. So, it really depends on where the judgment's coming from. In a divorce or a separation agreement or a custody case, or any time you're in family court, chances are that judgment is going to come with a set duration. So the expectation is already going to be there. You need to sell the house and pay me half the proceeds. And obviously it's going to be putting the house on the market immediately or within 60 days or whatever the time frame is. And you're going to get the money when you close. When you're looking at a spouse paying you a lump sum, they're going to have a lump sum date in there. They're going to say, within 90 days of today or 120 days or whatever the magic date is. So in the family court, it's very easy to at least know the expectation. But when you go outside of the probate court, it's a free for all. There's no expectation, there's a judgment, and the judgment is collecting interest, and that's what you know. And it's really up to you to figure out, well, what do I go from here? Can I have a payment review hearing? Do I have to do a separate action? Huh? What do you mean I don't get it right away? Because there's no deadline. So that's kind of the issue, is every court's a little bit different.
There's no deadline? Okay, you owe her this money, but pay it whenever you feel like it, 10 years from now. I mean, seriously, that's what it is?
A judgment stays in place for up to 20 years. So the simple answer is it could be. Your answer could be the exact thing of what we're talking about. If you have a housing court case, or if you have a small claims case, you could do a summary process, or you could do a supplementary process hearing. You could do a payment review hearing. When you're in district court or superior court, great, good luck, because you're really going to be relying on a constable or sheriff to hopefully seize assets. And what I mean by assets is I mean any asset. So they have, a car. You can theoretically levy it. The problem is if the car has a loan on it, you're not going to get really any money. So you really have to find that key thing that doesn't have money. So do they have a retirement account? And when we're outside of the probate realm, nobody really knows if they have a retirement account. Those questions aren't being asked. So you really are kind of at the mercy of hiring somebody, whether it be an attorney or whether it be a sheriff or constable that can make this happen for you, but you're really at somebody else's mercy to get it done.
I feel like every time we come on here, I mean, we talk about how long it takes to get a judgment, and it can take years. And what you're telling me now is that you go through those years. I mean, I know people can still bring you back to court and try to change a judgment, but now also people don't really have to pay unless you take another step. And it could be years before you get paid out, and maybe you'll never get it. I mean, it happened to me once, just a small claims thing with a tenant. I actually won in small claims court. She was just squatting, and then she went bankrupt, and I didn't get paid. I mean, it has to happen to more than just me. Do you see this all the time?
It does, and it's frustrating to me because I always want to do the pros and cons game with a client. And I tell you, look, you can win, but one, you're going to be paying me to hopefully win. Two, let's just say you win. How do we collect? Because unless that person, and that person, meaning the person you're suing, is an entity and a corporation, great. Maybe the corporation has property. The corporation has equipment and they have vehicles and they have other things. Maybe they have inventory. Maybe they're a grocery store, whatever it is. So those are the ones that you kind of go, oh yeah, I can get money from them. But Jane Smith down the street, she's going to park her car in the garage, so you're not going to be able to take it. And how are you going to get anything? And you really need to be at, okay, well, maybe she has a retirement account. Maybe she works at UMass. Great. She probably does have a retirement account. Then we can do a trustee process to try to collect that money. But we really have to come up with creative ways, and it is on a case-by-case basis.
Well, I mean, that's very interesting. I know that I've heard, and we've talked about this before, where like if the judgment has to do with child support, there's a whole escalation process, and with the end being if you still haven't paid by this time, you're stuck in jail calling everyone on your phone trying to get people to give you money so you can get out of jail. It's crazy. So you don't let's talk about that process and like why is that different than other judgments? Like they just don't take it as seriously, maybe.
I think it's just because we're talking about families. We're talking about everyday activities. The reality is somebody that is going through divorce that does owe a spouse $50,000, can they file for bankruptcy? Absolutely. Will it be discharged? I don't know. Really depends on the court and really depends on the circumstances and what that money was for. Now, if it's earmarked for child support, you're not getting out of it. If it's earmarked for alimony, you're not getting out of it. But there's other occasions that you might very well get out of that relief. So really, they're not going to put somebody in a situation in family court where they're out on the street. That was negotiated, that was or decided by a judge, but that was determined to be fair and reasonable. And so what happens is, in the other ones, yeah, you win because somebody didn't show up. You won because the judge found that, you were unfairly treated and it was a breach of contract. But it's not based off of your livelihood and your everyday activities where probate court really takes that to heart. So even if somebody isn't found in contempt, the judge can still say, sir, you need to pay this, and then they will put a deadline on it. So let's say the actions aren't willful and wanton or clear and unequivocal order. The judge can now make a new order that's clear and unequivocal. And the judge can realign it and say, well, we know you lost your job. You really couldn't pay that $500 a week, but we're going to have you pay, $200 a week now. So they can reallocate it and do it accordingly.
I mean, that's good because life does throw things at you and your circumstances do change. So you can't get blood from a stone, but then you've got people that are like working under the table and they got cash and I've heard people tell me, "Oh yeah, at this particular I'm not going to say what kind of job it was, but this person told me, "Oh yeah, I know people that they work for the government or whatever and they've got like a shoebox of cash in their locker at work." It's it's crazy. So I don't even know how you would go about trying to prove something like that.
Well, sometimes you just can't do it, but sometimes you can. The under the table job's great. I stalked him for a week, and this is where I saw him go every single day. And here's the video, judge. Here's my timestamps. So there are ways that we can get some of that. The shoebox in the closet, probably not doable unless maybe they go to the safe deposit box and you keep seeing them and you saw them walk down the stairs and the only thing downstairs is the safe deposit box. So obviously some of that stuff you're not going to be able to know. Some of it is going to be, hey, look, he told Sally and Sally's now willing to testify. Great. So There are creative ways that it can happen, but those are definitely harder to get. So obviously, the more that we can prove that somebody has an asset, the more likely it is we're able to seize it in whatever court. It just means that sometimes we finish with one court case and we have to start a whole nother court case to do the collection part of it.
Ugh, that's so frustrating. So, as a part of the process, how long does it typically take before you realize that uh, they're not gonna pay? Oh my God. Now I'm gonna you're gonna go call Nicole and see like when we need to start this case and how long this is gonna take. And I know a lot of cases are 6 months to 2 years, depending on what it is. So what have you seen as far as like time frames for collections?
If you're in probate court, I would say, 30 to 60 days after the deadline, you pick up the phone, you give me a call. I'll at least write a letter off to them saying, hey, you have another, whatever, 2 weeks, whatever is reasonable given the circumstances. If you don't do that, I'm going to file a contempt. And then you will have that contempt hearing in about a month. So that's a relatively short duration. When we're talking about a small claims judgment, the court will automatically assign a payment review. So they'll sign a first payment review. That's generally 6 months after the date of judgment. And then in all the other courts, you're really on your own. So from my perspective, I always say, no more than 60 days, because if they're not making any effort to reach out to you after that point, they're not doing anything. So you really need to come see an attorney so we can prompt them to hopefully make out some kind of payment agreement. And the reality is sometimes people just don't have the amount of money that the judgment is for. But come up with something. Everybody can come up with some kind of payment plan. So that's something that I would say after 60 days of not receiving a payment in another court, talk to an attorney, get at least a demand sent out to the defendant, and then at that point you might have to try another action, whether it be a trustee process or something else, just to get that collection process started.
I mean, as you say, like it's probably all about creating that paper trail, writing things down. You've got your calendar, you're going to write down what you see. I mean, I know that they'll say write down everything that you have, like write down how many places they've been, right? I mean, it may or may not mean they have the extra money. Someone might be buying stuff for them, or, I don't know what the case is, but you can really try to see, like, if you've got their bank statements, you can try to see, does everything add up? I mean, is that typically what the judge will do to try to figure out if, they can afford to pay you or not?
They will definitely do that in district court, especially the small claims division. They may do it in district court, regular division as well. Really kind of depends on the judge in the court. Superior court really doesn't care. They're not going to ask for financial statements. That's between you and the other party, and you guys need to figure it out.
Well, I mean, I guess I guess you just need a whole host of people when you have issues. You need a collection person, a sheriff, or you need your attorney. You need really good advice. You need to keep track of things yourself. Um, maybe a PI. I don't know. How often do people use a PI in these cases?
Not not often enough, I think. The reality is they just kind of go, wait, I have 20 years? Yeah, and you get to collect that interest over the 20 years. Yeah, you only get to collect the interest if they actually pay it. Sometimes it's just a matter of attaching it to the house. And hopefully they sell their house in the next 5 years, and you'll have to renew that judgment every 5 years or 6 years, just so it stays on there. So there are definitely things that you can do that, the reality is most people don't stay in their homes for 20 plus years. So that's a great avenue if they have that means.
I mean, to me, that makes a lot of sense. It's really, you've got to make sure that, I mean, honestly, if people have a conscience, which a lot of them don't, but I have seen somewhere that you can actually get them in trouble if they have like a professional license. You can't do that with all of these judgments, right? Which judgments really count for that?
You can do it for more than you think. It really depends on what the issue is and what kind of judgment it is. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things that's one of the things that I'm going to look at and I'm going to take into consideration when I'm advising you.
All right, so before we go, let's just go over the escalation again. I mean, I know it doesn't work for all of these, but you got the judgment, go.
Collect, figure it out. So really, again, probate court, great. There'll be a deadline. There'll be a contempt. It'll be short and sweet. Within 3 months, you're going to have your answer. Small claims, you're going to have an answer at least within 6 months as to whether or not they're paying and what kind of payment plan they're going to have. District court, superior court, yeah, you're on your own. Better find an attorney.
Okay. And then in 20 years, what if they die before they pay?
Then you may have a right to do a notice of claim on their estate. Otherwise, in 20 years and a day, that judgment's gone and you can't do a damn thing about it.
So we've gone over a lot of information about collections. Do you have any parting statements on this? Any bits of advice for people? I mean, because you see this all the time. I mean, hopefully this isn't the most common thing that people just don't pay after you go through court, but what do you think?
I think the biggest thing is know who the person is you're suing, because again, outside of probate court, anybody can be judgment proof. So people that have limited income, people that are on receiving public assistance, people that are on Social Security disability, they're what is known as judgment proof, and you can get all the judgments in the world and you can't force them to pay. You have to go, pretty please. And that's really all you can do. Unless, of course, they do have assets, in which case they're not judgment proof because they have those assets. But the reality is that's something that you need to consider before you even bring a lawsuit.
I mean, I feel like that's when what you say about being zen, being reasonable, you don't say being zen, but being reasonable and not making it about what you think should be right, and just reasonably looking at the cost of the thing. And if you're not going to actually get the money back, then all the money that you pay is just throwing good money after bad.
Absolutely. And that's why every single case, no matter what it is, I'm always going to do a cost analysis. You may not like the answer, but I'm going to do the cost analysis so that you can make a proper determination.
Because sometimes enough is enough. I mean, you might even have to make that decision after you've been fighting it for a while. I mean, it's certainly very helpful to have someone like you on your side, because I mean, I know that you and I have worked together for many years now, and there have been times where we've been fighting something for a year and a half, 2 years, and then you just get the feeling that the judge is just not going to side with you, right or wrong. And you make a great case, judge is having a bad day, whatever it is. And you just don't feel like it's worth another year, because that's how long it takes to get another trial. And then you have to look at how many more payments are you going to have to make to your attorney. And also there's the emotional and the time suck of coming up with all of these documents every few months. You've got to spend hours on putting together your costs benefit analysis and your expenses and your all of the different bank accounts you have, and like the people chasing you and saying you didn't give them something that you I mean, it's just a rat race forever and you have stuff to do in your own life and it becomes a part-time job of one that never pays that you're paying. So I seriously, I mean, like it's amazing to have someone like you that can, look at the cost benefit analysis and say reasonably, I don't think this is worth it anymore. I mean, we thought it was worth it for a while, but let's just not keep putting, money into this car that keeps breaking down. Like, let's just get a new car and think about something else for a while. I mean,
That's that's
it's
exactly it.
yeah. I mean, so do you see like a lot of people that make that decision and that's a hard decision to make, especially when you're so invested, but you get tired.
It's about a 50-50. Some people are like, no, I've invested this much time and energy. I'm going to see it through. And I'm going, okay. Um, and then the other people are like, I'm exhausted. Like, what are we doing here? So it's really kind of depends on who they're fighting with. Is it principle? Again, we can fight over that principle till the cows come home. So what's your motivation? What's the real desire? Sometimes it's just a matter of, I need to cut my loss. I need to, because emotionally, physically, financially, it's draining me. And again, maybe you find out that key thing of, great, I can win, but I'm never going to collect. So then the alternative is, great, now that you know that, settle the case right now. And then when we settle it, we put in terms that says exactly when you're going to get paid versus, I'm never going to collect this.
I mean, that's the only way to do it. And you have to make sure that your attorney is putting that in there because mistakes can be made, especially when there's a lot of clients. So, make sure you find someone that has it down. They've been doing it for a long time and they're gonna have the right documents together for you and have the right strategies. So that's why I always suggest, going to Nicole, go to her team if you are facing a collections matter or any other family or real estate matter, because they will give it to you straight. I mean, sometimes that's the most cost benefit of having an attorney that there can be because you have the real idea of what you're getting into.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you so much. We really appreciate all of your advice. I mean, these are things that a lot of people don't think about until it's too late and they've spent years invested in something that's just not going to pay out. And they could have saved a lot of time and emotional energy by stopping the thing early. And that's the cool thing about you is that you're not in it to just make a buck. You're just really honest with people. And try to do the things that are going to make sense and are going to make a difference.
Thank you. I try to do that because, I wouldn't want to be in somebody else's shoes. And again, how do you make an educated decision without knowing all the pros and cons?
No, and that's it. That's the nice thing about you is that it's not about, oh, I'm just going to take on as many clients and as many cases as I can. It's really like what makes sense. And I know you've said it to me before, like, really, you really want to keep you think to yourself, oh, well, if Nicole says that, then she's probably right. You get to the point where you say, Nicole is probably right. So thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate you. I hope everybody works with you when they need you. And because you really are worth your weight in gold. So thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a nice weekend. And thanks for watching.